Welcome back to a Celtic state of mind. Chris was just telling us of his love for the Walking Dead, which was a long-running saga. I'm Paul John Dykes. I'm delighted to be joined tonight by Chris, the aforementioned, as well as Kevin McCluskey coming in from Hungary. We're here, of course, to talk about Celtic 2, Dundee 0. Now, Kev, by the way, at half-time, you and I said, we've been here before, keep it nice and calm. We'll get a couple of goals in the first 15 of the second and everything will be rosy in the garden. I think in the second half we came out, there was a real intensity. We did play with an aggression, and that's what was missing in the first half, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like we were saying at half-time, we'd seen the movie so many times, so there was no point in getting overly carried away with the performance that we put in the first half. What we didn't really mention was the score at Pittodrie at half-time, and our game being 1-0 to Aberdeen, was putting us second in the table. So, coupled that with the performance that we put in the first 45 minutes, Brendan was going to put a rocket up a few of them, and he certainly did, because we came out in the second half in the first 15, 20 minutes. We really upped the tempo. We were looking a better team than we were in the first half. And then as soon as we got that first goal, it was game over. Because we'd been in so much control and dominance in the first half that all we needed was a goal. So as soon as it went in, I didn't see there being any way back for Dundee. So we were right to be quite calm, I think, at half-time, with a fair bit of degree of confidence and knowing what was going to come in the second half, and what we thought would come did. And that was just I described the first half as flat, the second half was just a professional performance, and that's all we had to do. And sitting pretty back at the top of the table for now, joint top.
Yeah, absolutely. Mount Cadath and I had a wee two and a throw in at half time. Despite his penalty, Annie Engels' purple patch seems well and truly over. Looks like he needs a confidence boost from somewhere. That's 1 point. And PJ, Yang with the assist. Come on now. Right.
I knew that was going to happen.
Second half, right?
That one after me.
Well, listen, wait a minute. I'm not going to take credit for what Yang did, but it was the first time he took on his man, hit the byline and got the ball across. The first time he did it, Chris. And what happened? We score a goal. And by the way, Mount Cadav, just to point out that 60 seconds later he's subbed off. So that decision was already made. And Palmer was taken off as well for Maida. We were a different beast. There was just more intensity in the second half, Chris, wasn't there?
There was. I mean, I agree with you. I think at the start of the second half, the intensity levels looked as though it had gone up. So you assume Rodgers was maybe giving him a little bit of a rocket during the half-time talk. And to be fair, Palmer and Yang played their part in that. They looked like they were trying to get forward. Taylor was doing a bit more overlapping. Palmer had a couple of cracking chances to play the ball low across the face of the box and hit an opposition player both times, which was really frustrating. But then he actually had a decent curved shot, which was well saved. So you thought, okay, he's got his head up. That's good. That's what you want to see. But at the same time, I think when Palmer goes off, Yang stays on for a short period after that. I completely agree with you. I think that was the first time he did what I'd expect a winger to do, which is get to the byline, put a fast, low cross into the box. Took a wee bit of a deflection, but there's AJ doing what AJ does again, and he's getting a wee reputation for doing that, for arriving in the box and doing that. So you know what, credit where it's due to Yang. He's done something that I think he needs to now try and do consistently at every opportunity he gets. Whether he'll get a few more opportunities, I'm not sure, because I think overall the performance of him and Palmer wasn't terrible, but wasn't at the level that you would hope. However, well, they're hoops players, and for Celtic, they'll always have my backing for every appearance they come on. But as you say, once we made those substitutions and we had something more akin to our usual lineup, I thought the pace level went up dramatically. Urgency went up. We looked like we had far more intent. I think Hatate came on and gave us that mobility in midfield. I was surprised to see Bernardo going off, actually. I would have kind of agreed with Mount Cadath. I would have probably taken Engels off, more for me, given his composure at the penalty. But I would have made him a bigger contender for going off. But do you know what? The performance in the second half, we did the job. It was a professional performance. I wouldn't say that we did anything terrible today, defence looked pretty solid, except for Carter Vickers forgetting that he's a defender and no a centre forward who can dribble. We got away with that one, but yeah, I think we looked comfortable, professional, not outstanding, but job done. 3 points, and if things continue at Pittodrie, then it's going to be I think was it Stephen said, if Carling did Wednesdays, and I agree with that sentiment.
Yes, we're going to keep an eye on what's happening up in Aberdeen. At the moment, we're 85 minutes into the game. Aberdeen are beating Rangers 2-1, and we'll keep a wee eye on that over the next 5 minutes. Now, there was a decidedly 80s vibe in the pre-match and at half-time, because obviously, Chris McElwain is nicknamed Double Denim because he loves a bit of the double denim jeans, denim shirt, same stonewash kind of vibe. And I admitted that my first record was indeed Kings of the Well Frontier by Adam and the Ants. So, Vinny Russell, if you're going to come in with the 80s retro chat, we're going to have to get it right, mate. Castle Grayskull was the good guys. Castle Grayskull was the good guys.
Rookie mistake.
Masters of the Universe. Now, Mount Kadath is claiming that the reason Yang was taken off was so that he could get a standing ovation.
Well, now, they call me Mr. Optimistic.
I know. No, fair play. Listen, it was one of these ones where you're looking at a player, and by the way, we mentioned at halftime, Ralston looking a bit ring rusty. Yeah, he wasn't doing the overlapping. I don't think he was working that well with Yang. Alistair Johnston comes into the fray, and it was a completely different ball game. The shape was completely different. Johnston's playing much higher up the park. It's then making Yang push higher up the park, and we're seeing that simple thing, Kevin, where Dundee are actually on the back foot. When we're attacking and they're facing their own goal. That's what you're trying to do. We didn't do enough of that in the first half, and Alistair Johnston, strangely enough, was one of the main components of that happening.
Yeah, and Alistair Johnston, after 33 minutes in the park, got man of the match.
Yeah.
So that's the influence of his performance tonight. I thought Ralston was okay when he was in the park. You remember a couple of weeks ago, in the Friday show, yourself and Sean on it, we were talking about Ralston and how he's that Mr. Reliable. He comes in and he always gives you a shift, and you know what you're getting from him. I think he's hampered, or was hampered today, by having Yang in front of him rather than it being Kuhn or Forrest, someone that's a more regular player. And he kind of tempered his own game to it, so that's why we didn't see the best of him. But, I mean, Johnson is a force of nature at times. I think he just comes in and he owns that right-hand side. It's his part of the park, and no one else gets to play in it unless he says he can. I thought he was brilliant when he came on. He's winning balls straight away. He's direct. He's looking to take players on, which was the thing that Yang wouldn't do. He's making things happen. And the goal that he gets, the way that he gets it, when it's him that plays the ball out wide to Yang in the first place, and he doesn't stop to admire the pass. He's straight in, making that run to the near post. That's not a fluke. That's design that he's got that goal. I thought he was brilliant. And as much as I like Ralston, these are the games when you realise that there is a wee bit of a drop-off in class when Johnson's not there, because he's a really top player. And again, for a point that you make at other times, when you talk about players that we've got that are Champions League level, I think Johnson is one of the few players that we've got that we can say is a genuine Champions League level player. And it's strange to say it almost for a fullback, but it's a delight to watch him play, because I think he's a full-blooded player, and he's a guy that you just wears his heart on his sleeve, and I enjoy watching him. So he was a great game changer today when he came on.
Yeah, it was. And just to qualify what you're saying there, Kevin, the discussion we have regularly is when you're looking at that squad and you're going into a Champions League game, which players are you happy with, and which other players do you think we need an upgrade for this level? And at the beginning of the season, I think last season I said we had 6 from the start 11 who I thought were Champions League level players. And the argument doesn't mean that they're good enough to play for Real Madrid or the winners of the Champions. That's not what the argument is. It's just that when you're going in, you're thinking, right, happy with him, we need an upgrade on him. And that's the kind of thinking. And the big discussion point was around Alistair Johnston this season, Chris, because I was on the fence as to whether or not he was in that group of players. But as Kevin says, I think he is. He's become such an important part of this team.
He has, and he's. I think he's taken his game to another level in recent matches. He's got this element about him where he just looks like he goes into every game without any fear. He's got that kind of warrior mentality. He's always had a bit of needle and a bit of grit about him, but he's just, again, I think he exemplifies that. He's actually probably the most natural replacement for a Scott Brown type player. Since Bruni left, to be honest, because he's got that same kind of, bring it on, throw tackles in, throw everything you've got at me, I'll just get up and get on with it and do my job. And now, what he's starting to do is what I think we saw from him early in his career is he's bombing forward, he's doing the overlap, he's getting into the box, showing that appetite to go and contribute to the real attacking play as well as maintain the defensive side. So yeah, I think he's a great player. I think he's the show of faith to give him the captaincy last week as well. I think there's another endorsement of what he brings to the table, not just as a player on the park, but I think he's got that personality and that drive within the club, which is getting recognised. So yeah, I hope we can keep him for a good few years, because I think he's a player who's just going to continue to improve.
You need leaders. You really need leaders in the team.
That's the right word. That's the right word.
You've got Callum McGregor, and obviously, he is always there. And then he gets a wee injury, and you think to yourself, right, a few players need to step up here. And I think we missed that a wee bit. And then Johnson comes in, and you're thinking to yourself, no surprise when Carter Vickers goes off that he gives Johnson the armband. So yes, Alistair Johnson, a worthy winner of Man of the Match. Tony Cassidy points out that Peter Grant is looking like an extra from the Craze movie. I'm guessing that Grant is in the studio for Celtic TV. But Grant is on the bill, Tony, with Roy Aitken and Pat Bonner. We're having an 80s night. It's a Christmas night for Acsom at Bad. Tickets are underneath this video. And we are going to have an 80s soundtrack as well. Rick Astley will feature, as will George Michael and Adam and the Ants. Now, Anthony Aitken makes a very good suggestion that we should maybe bring up the last couple of minutes on the screen, and we'll have a wee... I was going to say watch along. Let's call it a laugh along. We're 92 minutes in. Aberdeen are beating Rangers 2-1. And some might even say Aberdeen are going for second this season. I've heard it said. Vinnie Russell, this shows you, this is what really interests me about doing these shows, right? We've got Vinnie, and I agree with you wholeheartedly here, Vinnie. Need a backup winger to Kuhn, must for January. And then there's a lot of other comments coming in, AGSC being one of them. Decent contribution from Yang and Palmer, considering they have both been in cold storage. And I think that's a fair comment when you're throwing a player in. Yeah. And I think Ralston had a bit of that as well, whereby he's not had much game time. When do you give him game time? Because when we make our after changes, we moan about it, as we did in the pre-match. But these guys need regular football. Palmer and Yang, I know Yang got an assist. I think there was a really, really good chance that Palmer kind of more or less created for himself, and it was a good save. It was a decent save by the goalie. I'm not convinced. I'll come to you first, Kev. I'm not convinced. The two areas I want to see us improving on in January, if you can get a winger that can play both sides, a la Jota, brilliant, right? And a centre forward, because I don't think Kyogo was having his best night tonight, but we didn't really have the option to replace him because he does injured. They're the two areas I would like to replace and strengthen in January.
I would agree with that, 100%. Yeah, I think to start in Kyogo as well, or the centre forward area, there was a moment, maybe a couple of minutes before half time, when I thought I saw him holding his shoulder. Yeah, it's that one that's gone a couple of times. Mm-hmm. So I had a little worry there that if he has aggravated that again, one of these days it's going to be another serious one, and he's out for a couple of months. We can't afford to have that right now. If Adam Ida's out, even if it's just for today, or he maybe misses the weekend, I don't know. But we can't go into the big games or any moment of the season with just one fit centre forward. That's not how you run a club like Celtic, a big club. You can make the argument that we've got Dyson Maida, and he can come in and play centre forward if we need him as a third choice, but then that weakens your left wing, which takes you to the next point of whoever you're bringing in there is going to be your third or fourth choice winger, depending on who else is available. And we saw it tonight that I said it at half-time, and I'll stick by it, and I don't really care that Yang will probably be credited with an assist for it. I don't think he or Palmer are good enough to be considered as players that can really push and press for a first-team place just now. I take the argument on board that they've been in cold storage, and this is them just coming back out of it, so they will be a little bit rusty. They'll not be up to match speed the same as the rest of them. But there's a reason why they haven't been near match day squads for so long. Like Palmer's rarely made the bench, only come on in the last couple of games, I think. Up until today, Yang had only played 22 minutes this season. There's a reason for that. It's because they're nowhere near the level that we really need as a consistent starter. So they'll come in on a night like this when we're making wholesale changes, but otherwise not. So yeah, in January, I mean, Paul, you're bigging up Aberdeen and saying they need to make their 2 or 3 signings. They're wanting to challenge for the first or second. We need to do that as well. We need another centre forward, somebody that's going to challenge Kyogo, somebody that's going to be there for nights like tonight when he was making those runs, he was doing everything right, but also didn't look like he was going to score, missed a few sitters. We could have taken him off and brought a fresh impetus on up front, but we didn't have the player. So I think that's an area, and definitely out wide, we've spoken about it for long enough, and I think I might stop talking in a minute. It's Chris, do you have some good news to
Do
break?
you have an update from Aberdeen, Chris McElwain?
I think it's done. I think it's Aberdeen 2, Rangers 1. I'm trying to confirm, but I think that is it. Officially full time. Just
full time at Pittodrie, 2-1
done.
Aberdeen. Now, you know, the big thing is we were coming into this game and we do absolutely focus on what Celtic are doing. We do. But we're at the top of the league. We're neck and neck with Aberdeen. They're playing Rangers. We're going to veer into the territory of having a right good laugh at them. Let's be honest. A glancing header at the last minute by Rangers skipper James Tavernier flies inches wide. I'm so gutted that happened.
That's disappointing. That's disappointing.
It really is. Full time 2-1 Aberdeen. And how does that affect the league placing? So let's have a look at the table. Celtic, of course, top of the league with 28 points. Goal difference of 26. Aberdeen on the same points. And come on, let's give them credit for that, guys. See, when you look at the state of Aberdeen last season, the season before last, they were a poor outfit. They were going through managers 2 and 3 a season at one point there. And what they've got now is they've got a great momentum. And you go into that game tonight, and a lot of people thought, you know, they've done all right, but, you know, they never beat Rangers kind of thing, unless Scott Brown's playing for them. And they go out there tonight. It's a meaningful fixture against Rangers, and they win the game. Now, some people might say, let's talk about Celtic, and we'll get back onto the subject of Celtic. But this affects the landscape of Scottish football. We spoke about it beforehand, Chris, right? I don't underestimate, and it's not just one result. I'm not just picking one result. If it was a one-off result, those things happen. You can't get too excited about them, right? Rangers will lose games and all that. But this is Aberdeen on a tremendous run with a manager who's come in yet to be defeated as Aberdeen manager. He's got the momentum, which has actually started to be carried on by the fans. And I don't mind the fans singing about Celtic and coming for a title and all that. This is football, and that's what it's all about. That was another 20,000 up at Pittodrie tonight. Yeah. And Aberdeen came through that task. They were 1-0 up, they missed a penalty. Rangers pulled the equaliser back, and then Aberdeen went again. Now, we've seen them before. We've seen kind of last-minute goals. We've seen them scraping 2-1s and all this kind of stuff. Coming back against us, 2-2, and then thinking that they've gone ahead, and thankfully the goal was chopped off. For me, I'm going to stick to my guns, and it's not because I said it, so I'm going to stick to it. Nothing has changed my mind, Chris. In fact, what's happened since I said Aberdeen could potentially be the second club this season, everything they've done has just strengthened it. It's absolutely, for me, it's made the argument even stronger.
There's a lot to be said for the power of belief, and that team seems to have it at the moment, and that's credit to the manager and his staff, I think, for what they've done at that club. I mean, Aberdeen's, look, they've been, for me, they've always been the, you know, in my lifetime, the third biggest club in Scotland. I'm too young to really be able to comprehend the Alex Ferguson years at Aberdeen, where he really transformed them as a team. But I always think Aberdeen is the, you know, some of my mates were Aberdeen fans, and you know, I remember having, you know, like I mentioned earlier, the Panini sticker book had Theo Snelders and all these kind of guys in this thing. But I always knew of Aberdeen and always considered them to be like if it wasn't Celtic and Rangers, it was Aberdeen was the third team there and so recognisable. So for me, it's a great news story. It's good for Scottish football. It's great for competition. From a banter and getting one over your rivals element, it's I'll enjoy any team that goes and puts a challenge in Rangers and gets a good result against them. But I think what they're doing this season is so much more than that. And if we can switch off our green tinted glasses for a second and look objectively, which is not easy to do, particularly with tonight's results, it is fantastic for Scottish football, which too many people view as a one or two horse race, or these days pretty much a one horse race, and they deride our football and they think it's an easy, and it's a jolly up here and that kind of thing. It's not, right? Our league is challenging. It's challenging partly because of the economic restrictions. It's challenging because there is a disparity in the resources between teams. It's challenging because we're a small population, and we probably have too many teams across too many leagues. But the only way you're going to break that cycle is for someone to come in and just get things right the way Aberdeen and the manager seem to be getting this season. Now, look, there's a hell of a long way to go. It's not even halfway through the season yet, but they've built up a really impressive lead. They are sticking very, very close to us, which on paper shouldn't be doable, right? But they're doing it, and you absolutely must give them all the respect and credit for that. And look, as we spoke on the bulletin earlier today, there's a bit of poetic justice about this because, as we've spoken about Rangers, this entity, Rangers, and the fact that they are being so incredibly mismanaged and yet seem to still come out with an element of dominance over a number of the other teams in Scotland, unjustly, unfairly, not with the correct amount of scrutiny or the right amount of regulation, in my opinion. And look, I'm not having a go at Rangers here. They're fans. There are good fans in every support. There are Muppets in every support, and I get that. But institutionally, that is a rotten at its core institution, and it continues to be, and it must stop. And if what Aberdeen are doing, and all credit to them and the achievements and what they want to achieve this season, but there's an element of justice about a team that's saying, do you know what? We're tired of not being on a level playing field, and we're going to go and we're going to buck the trend here, and good on them. So yeah, I wish them every credit in the world. I do not want them to give us too much of a title challenge, but I do take my hat off to them and respect them for what they're doing. So good on them.
It was very articulate until you got to the point where you just said Muppet. Well, sometimes it's the best word. Sometimes that is the best word. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's just people will say, you're bitter, and it's but the fact is, they don't lie, right? The figures don't lie. What was released from Rangers don't lie. They are getting an advantage they do not deserve and have not deserved for some time. And let's face it, it's not the first time they've done it.
No, it's not the first time, and I don't think it's. I don't think you should be apologising for pointing it out like you did earlier on the 12:30 bulletin. Ian Roy, Govan meltdown. I called it the mother of all meltdowns earlier on today. If two results went a certain way, and they have gone that certain way, Kevin McCluskey, and it's bigger than what's happening on the football park, isn't it? Because what you have at Aberdeen at the moment is the momentum. What you've got at Celtic is that positive momentum, the feel-good factor. A gaffer who has got a game plan, a strategy, and he's got his team behind him. And Aberdeen and Celtic both have that. And when you're all in the same kind of groove and you're all pulling in that direction, you can make things happen. I'll tell you what, it's hard to flip it when the mentality is in the opposite direction, isn't it? When you're in a slump, when the fans are getting on your back, when you're releasing financials that are ridiculous, as Chris said, shouldn't be allowed, and when people are dropping like flies in the head of various departments. That's where Rangers are right now. And I don't know about you, but I'm loving every single moment of it.
I'm with you on that. Absolutely. Loving it. I will look forward, if I was back home actually, I would look forward to going to the newsagents tomorrow morning to see the back pages of the papers with the broken Rangers crests, because I'm sure they'll be out tomorrow, right? Because that's what the press does. Because they are a broken club. They have to be. As you say, there's so many of the football operation positions that are available. No one's filling them. They've lost so much of that backroom team. They've got a manager in place that they've just given a new 4-year contract to that they're going to have to pay off £4-5 million that they don't have to get rid of him, start again. A manager who's been complaining that the team hasn't been his for the whole time he's been there, yet he's spent more money than any other club in
What happened there? Sorry to be what the hell just happened there?
I'm sorry. I've got a very flimsy iPad here, which I'm using, which is usually the reason I end up banning people, because it's a bit flimsy. But yeah, that didn't go.
For a few moments, I thought you had just keeled over.
It's that Rangers supporter assassin over there across the street.
Exactly. Aye, got you in his sights. Sorry, Kevin. On you go.
No, quite all right. Aye. So basically, they're just a broken club. Everything that you would like to be going right for you, for them, it's going wrong, and it's beautiful just to sit and watch it. They're imploding, and it's the full in the entitlement of being the establishment club. They think that the rules don't really apply to them, like Chris is saying. You know, they're running up massive debts year on year that no other business would be allowed to continue. They're not a going concern. They can't be. The amount of money that they lose every year, is it 120 million or something since their inception? That's a ridiculous amount of money. And it's just, I don't know how to describe it, but it's just brilliant to sit and watch. I'm loving it.
The thing is, Kev, right? You're talking there about the business side of it, and you're right. So in any walk of life, in any sector, if a business is able to gain any kind of advantage over its competitor, right, because it could happen in any business, that's one side of it. The other side is the sporting integrity aspect as well, right? So Aberdeen have had to cut their cloth accordingly. So what they've done is they have gone out and they've got this up-and-coming manager who is a proper coach. He's a proper talent spotter. He obviously can motivate his team. He seems very good in-game when you look at his substitutions that he makes, particularly the ones he made against us. It made a big impression. And then they're selling their star player and they're reinvesting parts of that fee back into the squad. So you've got the business aspect of you know, having an advantage as a business to be a more successful business than your competitor. But the sport integrity aspect for me is spending money you don't have, just so that you can try and put a better team on the park. And they've not. That's the thing. They've not put a better team on the park. They've maybe put a more expensive team on the park. AGSC Tech, you're back in. Correct. Aberdeen are not a joke. This is a challenge. Dealing subs decisions are so good. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Good news, Ryan. We need to be better at the weekend. See, this is the thing as well. We're going into this game. They've got a bounce. We're going into this semi-final. This is going to be a tremendous match. By the way, you know, it's often you go into these games and both sides cancel each other out and it's a forgettable encounter. But it's the two on-form teams, which, you know, there couldn't be a winner between them when we played in the league. And we're going into this cup game. Honestly, it's a mouth-watering proposition. We've got Green Lichty coming in. Most importantly, we end the night on top. Let's have a look at the top of the table again. So Celtic and Aberdeen on 28 points. And then in third place, you have Rangers on 19. 9 points behind. And just 3 points behind them are Motherwell. In fourth place. And who knows what's going to happen in relation to whether or not they can sack the gaffer, because they just gave him a new 4-year deal at the beginning of the season. However, the meltdown is going to be glorious, Chris. And then what happens is that then feeds into this momentum and the opposite way at Ibrox, doesn't it? So I think what we're looking at here is, you've got to keep your own backyard in order. Celtic will have to strengthen in January. But I just think if Aberdeen show that wee tiny bit more ambition, Chris, and push us, I don't see it being a bad thing. I do think Celtic will have enough. I think Brendan Rodgers is one of the biggest aspects of that. But we'll have, I mean, he showed it last season where we didn't have the best squad and we still managed to get through and win a double, right?
We did, but yeah.
We would have too much for them, Chris. But I think it's a healthy challenge, and the longer it goes on, I think the more we need to stay on our toes. We couldn't slip up tonight.
Yeah, sorry for jumping in earlier there, but yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think we can't take any element of the season for granted. We saw it last season where we'd built up a pretty comfortable lead, and we kind of dropped off a bit. And we, I think, by our own dip in form, allowed Rangers to come back in and challenge. And we wouldn't want that to happen again. This Rangers team don't look as though they're anywhere close to the team they had even last season. But with what Aberdeen are doing, we cannot afford to take them for granted. We shouldn't show them any disrespect whatsoever. I think we respect what they're doing, respect what they do on the park and what they've already done in the park against us. By rights, we should have enough to see the title over the line, but we cannot be complacent. And that, for me, is the biggest endorsement and validation for what Aberdeen are doing, is that I now recognise them as, at this point in time, our closest challengers for the title. Whether that be, even just challenging us for the cup, we're obviously playing them at the weekend, or what they can do going through the league. What I would like to see, and look, whatever Aberdeen achieve this season, I would like to see them build on the momentum that they're carrying at the moment. So even if at some point, resource constraints, injuries, whatever catches up with them, and for whatever reason they maybe don't achieve what they're in a position to achieve at the moment, you want to see them build on it and continue a sensible model of maybe selling players for decent money, reinvesting it wisely, backing a manager for a bit of the long term. Following some of the good stuff that our club has done as a model. We bring in players, sell them for bigger money, reinvest that wisely, rinse and repeat, that kind of thing. But yeah, I just think it would be so good for our league, and our football standing if Aberdeen or another, come through and actually give us that. It'd be nice to have a top 5 or a top 6 that are kind of interchangeable, and it'd be quite nice if Rangers weren't always in a number 2 position, but maybe we're down in 3 or 4, or potentially, not even there. But yeah,
they might drop further down once they get the points deduction. How much is a points deduction for administration these days? 10, 15?
It depends what league you are. Well, given our organisation, will probably grant them 10 points. But it's it's no. Like I say, I've got a degree of sympathy for any supporter who has to go through something similar to what we went through in the 90s. But like I say, as an institution, there's just such a toxic, rotten element there. And I want to make a quick shout out. There's a Scottish singer called Iona Fife, who I know will be celebrating tonight, and she takes some amount of dog's abuse from the Rangers fans simply for calling them out on their behaviour. And I hope she's having a good night tonight, and I hope she stays off social media, because I'm sure she is getting absolute pelters. But she's always a good one for a bit of online banter. And another wee shout out. This is the best story. It'll be quite funny. I promise I'll make it quick, and we'll get back to the football. But my daughter was telling me she works for the NHS just now. She's a student nurse. She's at uni, but she's doing placements at various hospitals. And one of her sort of co-student nurses or colleagues she was speaking to today was going straight from his work to the game at Celtic Park tonight. So she said to me, obviously big Celtic fans, yeah. And he asked her, she said, well, my dad's really big on Celtic, and he does a podcast. Oh, which one? I watch a lot. She says, Acsom, I watch that all the time. Which one's your dad? And she said, oh, it's Chris McElwain. Oh, I don't really know him. She said, well, he goes by Double Denim. Double Denim, I know exactly who that is. Yeah, absolutely. I was like, you think you've made it, now you're thinking, I've not really. I've kind of gone down. But
Double Denim, double D.
If he's watching after the game, or he gets a chance to watch back, Stevie, thanks for watching and for your support, sort of.
No, absolutely. Hey, listen, we've been called a lot worse, mate. Joseph McGonigal, what a game it'll be at the weekend. Not a flash in a pan. I agree with that. Mike Callaghan, I'm away to the Rangers podcast. See you later. Come on. Who's got the yellow cards? Mind you, I'm sure it'd be a good laugh. 1,100 watching us at the moment live. Thanks every single one of you. 9 points is the difference, Brian. And we've also got Meltdown, says Joseph. It's going to be a glorious
Hashtag it. Meltdown.
Jungle Line, play your best team and win the game, then make changes. Tonight in Falkirk, and struggle till the changes. Learn your lesson. I do tend to agree with that. I think that you give people game time on a kind of rotational basis. You give them 20, 30 minutes here and there. But the big raft of changes, it just doesn't click. The rhythm We don't have the rhythm that we do with the strongest 11. Pac-Man 67, sack Clement and take their debt to 20 plus million. That's what they are facing. Quarterback Punk, AJ runs and doesn't look knackered. Some engine and attitude. Wish I could say the same about me after 45 minutes on a treadmill this morning. Henrik McLaughlin, I noticed McKibben does a Calmac pointing at players. This is something I love about him, Kev. He's just in the team, and there's been all this talk. Oh, it's almost as if he's a competition winner. You know what I mean? Celtic fan and all this kind of stuff. I'll tell you what, right? That's not the way he approaches his game. He constantly demands the ball. It doesn't matter what level he's playing. It doesn't matter if he's playing alongside our record signing who's cost us £11 million. That's a good point Henry McLaughlin makes. He just comes in, slots in, and makes an impression, doesn't he?
He looks like he's been there his whole career, and that's a great thing to say for somebody that's had his trajectory in his career. And I'll be the first one to hold my hands up and say I wasn't excited by the prospect of signing Luke McCowan when it first came up. I think there was rumours at some point last season that we might have been looking at him, and I wasn't too keen on it. Then when it grew arms and legs again over the summer, I wasn't too keen. It was a £1 million outlay, so for that I wasn't too bothered. You know, it was kind of a no-brainer to bring him in. He's been a decent Scottish player in the league. He knows the league. He'll do us for the European squad and get the Scottish, numbers up in the squad. And he had the bonus of being a Celtic fan, but I didn't have great expectations that he was going to come in and play very many games or have the impact that he's had. But he slotted in perfectly. You know, he's living the dream, and he's making sure by his performances, by his attitude, that dream is going to last for as long as it possibly can. He's in the team on merit. We had some doubts maybe about him coming in to start games, because we've seen it that a lot of players will come off the bench, get their 15, 20 minutes, make an impact, but they're coming into a game that's in game state 75 minutes in, and they're fresh legs and can influence it. There's always a worry whether they can have the same influence from the start. And I think in those two games that he's played, the last two games, he's proven that he can do it. And yeah, I think it helps that he's a Celtic fan, actually. You know, as you say, you might get that, oh, he's won a competition thing. No, he hasn't. He's there on merit because he's a good player. Brendan will only play him if he's a good player. But because he's a Celtic fan, it means more to him that we win these games. So he will and has stepped up to tell players where to go and what to do. And you see it also with Tony Ralston that we spoke about earlier on as well. He's not the best football player in the world. He's not the best right back at the club. He's not the best defender at the club. But when he's in the team, he's got no fear about shouting at other players and telling them where to go and what to do. Because as we spoke about with Alistair Johnson, he's a leader. Ralston's got some leadership skills about him. McCowan's got the same as well. And we needed that at the weekend. He was the boy that drove us on to the win. And today, as the commenters mentioned there, he maybe didn't score a goal or set one up today, but he still influenced the game and he's still wanting to dictate what others are doing. And it's really encouraging to see that he's come in and he's not been overawed by where he is. He's fitting in like he belongs to be here.
Yeah, he absolutely does. It's a long way for Aberdeen since Neil Warnock. That wasn't a bad dream. That actually happened last season.
Surreal.
Look at them now. We'll be back tomorrow at 12:30. There'll be loads for JP and I to talk about as we look ahead to the weekend's action. But just go and enjoy yourself this evening. Celtic are top of the league, and on joint top are Aberdeen. Languishing 9 points below us are Rangers. Enjoy the meltdown, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you to Chris McElwain and Kevin McCluskey for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.